He who can withstand the most pain will win. And so I think I am on a mission. I think I've been called to try to help level the field for those that are in the fight. And I know how hard it is. 95% of people are unhappy and likely broke. The hardest thing for us to do is to acquire the trust of the customer.
Welcome everybody to this episode of Unconventional Materials. This guest is a banger. I'm excited to have Mr. Tim Calise from timcalise.com, former VP of Business Development at Gym Launch, and currently with over $325 million plus raised in capital funds, currently running a consulting and it sounds like a private equity acquisition company. Mr. Tim Calise. Tim, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Tim, I am stoked to talk to you for a number of reasons. Mainly because one thing that, a lot of our audience members, general contractors, home builders, right? One thing that they have asked themselves at one point or another, or maybe they've been faced with the question is, what does it look like to exit my company, right? And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the show, is because you kind of have, I wouldn't say kind of, you have a good amount of experience talking about like what a healthy exit actually looks like and what to do in preparation for that. And so I want to have this conversation with you. We're kind of going to let it free flow and see where it takes us, and we'll kind of be able to answer some of those points. But before we get into all that, what's the origin story, man? I gotta know, like, what got you into this space? Because it's not like somebody wakes up when they're like 10 years old and say, I want to get into, investing into businesses.
Yeah. So my short story arc is I grew up in New York, the North Shore of Long Island, and escaped without a heavy accent. So that was the first kind of first win earlier in my life. But honestly, look, I was that kid who was always super inquisitive. And now being a father of three, I see it in my son, and I probably drove my parents absolutely crazy.
Right.
But I was always taking things apart, putting them back together again. I was kind of the kid who was not traditionally artistic, but like my creative side was more in problem solving.
Sure.
And so that showed itself really the first kind of evidence was in college. I went to school at Washington, D.C., at George Washington University. And my sophomore year in college, we started a company called Campus Snacks.
Okay.
And the idea was, if you've ever spent time in downtown Washington, D.C., everything shuts down after about 9 o'clock, kind of after the dinner crowd and everybody leaves the city. But as a college kid, like that's when things just start getting interesting, right? And so we realized that like 7-Eleven was the only option we had as college kids to, get, snacks and drinks and stuff like that. And so a buddy of mine, actually my roommates and I, created a website where people could call or text orders from wherever they were, and we would have them delivered by bike to their doorstep within 7 minutes.
Wow.
And so we became the go-to for college kids in and around our area for, like I said, anything late night. And so we were like the late night snack delivery business. And I learned a really important lesson, which was around marketing, and we can go further into that.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the springboard into, well, what do I want to do with this kind of entrepreneurial drive that I have? And I spent some time at a large investment bank, and I realized I did not want to do that any longer. But this was like 2003, 2004, and hedge funds were the big kind of new way, kind of where everybody was, all the smart money was going. It's where all the institutional money was going, et cetera. So I was really fortunate to have a mentor who, when I asked him the question, how do I get on the other end of the phone, didn't just laugh me out of his office. He said, I know someone who wants to run a portfolio but doesn't want to run a business. Maybe you guys can get together. And from 2004 to 2007, as a early 20s, mid 20s year old kid, I raised over $325 million for that fund, crisscrossing the country from some of the largest institutional investors out there, including some very famous folks that people would know. And that was my first kind of show of what I was able to do when I put my mind to something. And I was just naive, to be honest, at the time. But took my leave at the end of 2007. We actually voluntarily returned all of that capital in advance of what turned out to be the 2008 stock market crash, which we saw
Wow.
coming. And so that was the end of every one of my kind of my life is separated into chapters.
Yeah.
That was the end of a big chapter. And my wife and I decided, well, what did we want to do next? We love fitness, and so we got into a digital training concept. And over the course of about 8 years, we built multiple seven-figure gym business. And that led me to being introduced to Alex and Layla Hormozi, who a lot of people know these days for acquisition.com. And Alex, quite frankly, said, is using his words, "You're in the wrong opportunity vehicle. You should not be owning and running gyms. You should be doing something else." And Gym Launch was just building some momentum. And so he recruited me to come work with him. And then we exited that a couple of years ago. And I've spent the last couple of years really packaging up the learnings and the lessons of the last 20 years to help $1 to $3 million service businesses increase their cash flow and build a business that they have the option to sell if and when they want to.
Okay. You just answered a lot of my questions without me even asking them, so I appreciate that. You're making this easier. Tim, okay, so there's a couple things. First of all, let's just like draw out the parallel real quick. You start this business in college, this, driving on a bike, delivering, food. But I want to make a point here. It's really interesting that your very first jab at business was a service business. And now you are quite literally helping other people do exactly that. I don't know if that's something you've kind of taken into consideration, or is that kind of like a passion driver for you as you kind of move into the current space that you're in right now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a father of three. My wife and I have been married 17 years, together over 20. And to say that the road, it sounds really rosy, right, Lev? Like everything was all sunshine and rainbows and everything was up and to the right. The reality is there were some really tough times through there. And I think I am more of an empath than I believed myself to be in kind of the early stages of my life, meaning I grew up thinking like more the gladiator mentality. He who can withstand the most pain will win.
Right.
And so I think I am on a mission. I think I've been called to try to help level the field, level the playing field for those that are in the fight.
Yeah.
And I know how hard it is. And a lot of people say, like, you don't know what it feels like. If you've never looked over the precipice and looked into the abyss,
Right.
it is an experience that you can't read about.
Yeah.
And I think that is what drives me, is a little bit of like, I want to help other people never have to necessarily succumb to that pain that comes from the trials and tribulations of running and owning a business.
I think that's huge. I think that's huge because there isn't, okay, I'll put it this way. There aren't a lot of, I mean, I work with general contractors, but business owners, period, who have somebody in their corner to kind of bring a lot of this stuff to the surface, acknowledge it, and say, it's okay. Like, it's fine. I know what you're going through, and I have, been through this road myself personally and helped other people to kind of get onto the other side. And there is hope. And I think that that's kind of what you are now, is like you're that light bearer, right? You're the bearer of light, showing people that like, hey, I'm carrying the lantern, and it's because of the fact that I got to the end of the road and I was able to actually see that there is light at the end of this tunnel. And so the work that you're doing is inspirational. It's super awesome. I want to, with the time that we have, obviously, get a bit more into the nitty gritty, because there are service business owners that are going to be listening to this. They're going to be builders, right? General contractors, specifically in the residential space, but maybe even the commercial space, who may just want to get a little bit more perspective. So I guess I'm going to throw it your way, and this is where, you can give the Tim Calise masterclass. But what does it take, man? What is it like? What if I am a general contractor and I am trying to create something that, one, either outlasts me, or two, something that I can sell? Where do I start?
Yeah. So I'll approach it this way. I believe wholeheartedly, not to be too kind of 30,000 foot view, but I believe wholeheartedly that we can only have the size of business that we desire. It has to, it cannot surpass the skills and beliefs that we have. So the first step is, I am a big believer, as you spoke to, having mentors, having guides. Just about every business owner needs a third party to lend perspective and confidence in them when their confidence is shaken. So that's the first. So first is, it's the old adage here, the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I would argue you're the average of the 5 people that you let into your mind.
Wow. Double
Which
click on
means,
that a little bit, because I think that this piece right here, this is something that a lot of GCs struggle with. They're like, I don't know. Like, it's fine. Like, I got these friends, or, I got these people I'm working with and stuff like that. And it's like, it's really not that deep. But you're saying the contrary.
So here's the thing. 95% of people are unhappy and likely broke.
Yeah.
Whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
So the question you have to ask yourself is, there's a geographic piece to it, which is like the people I hang out with.
Yeah.
You can spend time with those people, but the fact that you're listening to this show, you are wired differently. You want something different. You believe something to be different. I have a guy that I hold in very high regard. His name's James Kemp. He's a coach of coaches, effectively, but a really, really smart guy. And he said there's really 2 types of people out there. There are people that need sufficient evidence to know that something is more likely than it's not. Or there are those people that just need a tiny bit of evidence to say it's possible, and they go. And I actually, a great client of mine and dear friend is actually in the roofing space. It's an incredibly fractured market.
Yeah.
And this is the way things are done, or these are the ways that things have always been done, is a sign of where the market is. And I think it's a sign of opportunity, because you have the chance to do it differently, to break from the pack.
100%.
So what needs to happen, in my opinion, to build a lasting business? First is cash flow.
Yep.
There's this, I think, false premise, especially in home services, that home services are not like technology. Facebook didn't have to make a profit. Amazon didn't make a profit for a decade, and they were worth $100 billion plus, right? Home services don't work that same way. You need to know your numbers. You might be in home services, you might be in roofing or anything else. You're a business owner. You need to know how to run basic financial calculations and know whether you're right or not. And the thing here is, if you don't know what top line revenue is, if you don't know what your gross profit is, and you don't know what your net profit is, and you don't know what numbers they should be, that is priority number 1 for you.
Huge.
Because if you don't get your gross profits right, nothing else matters.
Huge.
Right? So educate yourself on how to read financial statements. If you don't know what those numbers should be, someone knows what they should be. Make sure you know what those are. And when I say know what they are, and I'm really, really kind of hitting this home for you, every 1% gross margin that you give up will likely equal approximately a 10% reduction or increase in your net take home.
Yeah.
That is how important it is. 74% versus 75% may sound small. It is the game.
Yeah. It's marginal.
So aim small, miss small. 100%.
Marginal increases. That's something that, in my time working at T-Mobile, I remember I had a regional director who shared this with me. And, we were talking about, you're in a retail environment, right? Like, It's like hitting your goal by a matter of like 100% or 103%. And, I remember this regional director told me the opportunity, rather, the future of our business depends on the reps that stretch to that 3%.
Mm-hmm.
The 100%, meeting that 100% goal, that's just the baseline standard. But real revenue growth year on year, it's the stretch, right? It's actually reaching towards. And so you're speaking to this. I think there are other KPIs that are super important. I want you to kind of double click on some of those as well, Tim, because this is massive. You're giving a big masterclass for it now for a lot of GCs.
Yeah. So gross profit, which is effectively you take your revenue minus the things that are specific to a job. Mm-hmm. So materials, et cetera, you got to know what those are. most people, so and then you end up with all the other operating expenses, which is like your office and all of the other types of things. Um, on the financial statement, like the P&L side, most people will say something like your operating expenses should not be more than 40% of your gross revenue. That's at the outside. There's a lot of efficiency there, but I want to focus more on the revenue generating side because I think that's where all the business is to be won. Um, and as a precursor, and we can come back to this in a moment, but I focus exclusively on driving recurring revenue.
Yes.
This is something that if every month you are starting at zero and need to sell your way to generating cash, I'm here to tell you that there is another world out there where every month you can actually have consistency of revenue, which will allow you to have a lot more time freedom, financial freedom, and mental freedom. And so we can come back to that. But that is how I think about it. And the number one metric that everyone should be focused on is the number of offers that you make.
This is huge.
So once we get the model right, which means let's give people a way to continue to pay you month over month. An example of that is I was reading something. There was a HVAC contractor who charges $49 a month, and you get priority appointments. You get a free estimate once a year on cleaning, and something like a 10% off any services that come up.
Yep.
He has 2,000 clients.
Yeah, do the numbers, right?
He doesn't every month, every one of his bills is paid.
Yeah.
Before he even shows up on a job site.
Yeah.
So the reason I bring that up is because it might not be the way that it has been done in your market.
Yeah.
But these are being done in markets just like yours.
Yeah.
And you have to decide what business you want. And I will tell you the end point of this, which is a business that you can sell if you want to for top dollar. This is what an investor like myself is going to ask you about. And if you don't have it, it's the equivalent of not keeping up your home. It's emblematic that you just don't take your business seriously.
Yeah.
And I think if you're listening to this, you're probably one of those people that does. You have to do the work. You have to put these things in place because a discerning investor wants to see it, and you will get paid handsomely for doing things differently than everybody else.
Tim, that what you just said right there. First of all, I think that you just broke. I can't even count how many beliefs that commonly hold grips on a lot of general contractors, builders, service business owners, period. It's this fixed belief. It's this tight-knit mindset that my biggest competitor in the area isn't doing what Tim's saying, right? They're not doing what Lev's saying. They're not doing what all of these, guys who they've never been contractors before, right? What do they know about business? But what's interesting is that there are the outliers, right? And those outliers are the ones who are making true ripples within not just their market, but across the country, across countries and across the world. And so I guess, how have you kind of dealt with, people who come to you with these fixed beliefs? How do you go about educating people in a way that informs them and also just abandons some of those things that they've kind of maybe even grown up with?
Yeah. So one of the first questions that I would ask you is, do you know what business you're in? I work with a home services business that basically started with, basically they were arborists. They cut trees and took trees down and stuff like that. And I said, what business are you in? And they're like, we're in the tree business. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're in the home beautification business.
Right.
And they're like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
The hardest thing for us to do is to acquire the trust of the customer. That is an asset.
Yeah.
Once someone trusts you, Then you have to ask yourself, how many problems can I solve for this person?
Yeah.
So I coached them. I was like, we're going to change your sales script when you go out and talk to a homeowner. He's like,
Right.
what the heck does that mean? And I said, at the end of the day, most of us are somewhat ego driven.
Right.
And the outcome I want you to sell them is that every one of their neighbors is going to be jealous driving by your house because it makes them feel inferior. So the question I would ask you is, what needs to be true to deliver on that promise? Mrs. Smith, I saw your trees were a little overgrown. Do you mind if I cut those back? And who does the lawns? And who does the edging on your thing? And who does this? Would it be helpful for you if I took care of this, and then we can talk about everything else effectively as it happens? And then you go from making a single sale for, say, $500 to a recurring revenue sale that might be, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000.
Yeah.
So showing somebody what's possible,
Yeah. Huge.
is one of the things that, like, I believe that most people are well-intentioned. They just don't understand how to actually build the bridge between the desire that they have to give value and articulate that value for somebody else in a way that makes the yes easy.
Yeah.
And so I actually have a framework that I walk through people through, the 6 ways that you can build product. And if you're listening to this, I'll give you a way to get that at the end of the show. So hang on. But that'll help you walk through thinking about the idea, ideation around this.
Of course.
Yeah.
Tim, okay. Bombs are being dropped. Okay. You're breaking a lot of people's beliefs around what's possible within their businesses. The recurring revenue model within the remodeling space, within the custom home building space. I know there are GCs listening to this and their ears are bleeding and they're like, these guys are full of it. Here they go, talking a good talk, right? Talking the venture capital talk, talking the private equity talk, right? Okay. But what I'm hearing from you is that there are creative ways of going about this, and there are creative solutions that plug into really any sort of service business that can build a moat around them. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to speak to those people that say, I'm full of it, because I want to give you an action item.
Yeah.
And this is what I do with every one of my clients or anybody I have work with, my partners at this point. We take our businesses to market, which means we go and find a buyer at least every 36 months, every 3 years.
Wow.
So if you know who you want to sell to, the type of person, and we can talk about the different types of buyers, go to one of them and say, I'm thinking of selling my business in a year or two.
Yeah.
How much would you value it at today? And if I was able to find a way to generate an extra $50,000, $25,000, add or subtract to zero monthly, what would you buy the business for if I had that today?
Right.
They'll give you an answer. In real dollars, you will understand how you're probably leaving 7 figures on the table
minimum
when you get the answer to that question.
Yeah.
And here's the genius part of the whole thing. When you go through that process, they are effectively telling you exactly what you need to work on to maximize the value of your business.
Huge.
So if you had the right business with the right model, presented in the right way, and have someone you can sell it to, do you think your future would feel better to you right now?
Yeah.
So let's wring all the risk out of it and actually bring everyone to the table. You can always say no. And if your eyes happen to dance when they say a number, you've got options. And as a great mentor of mine says, if you don't know your options, you don't have any.
Yeah, having the options, and I think that one thing is having the options. The second one is what you just said, is having the awareness of those options, right?
Yep.
Okay. VP of Business Development and Gym Launch. Obviously, we had Kale on the show, current CEO of Gym Launch. The company exited and sold to American Pacific Group for $46.2 million. Obviously, Alex and Layla, very big personalities out in the space right now. I had the blessing and the opportunity to meet them at their recent acquisition.com workshop just maybe 4 or 5 months back. And incredibly insightful human beings. I want to talk about what was your piece in this puzzle? Because effectively, I don't think a lot of people know this, Tim, but you had a pretty instrumental piece in the sale of this company and also bringing it to a point so that it can actually be a sellable asset. Talk to us about that.
So Alex and Layla are two of the smartest, most driven people I've ever met, and so they deserve 101% of all the credit of what they built. My role was there were three pieces to Gym Launch. There was the consulting business, which was under the name Gym Launch. There was Prestige Labs, which was a supplement brand. And then we had a digital product called Allen, which was a lead gen product. So when I came in, I actually ran Prestige Labs for a period of time. Kale's wife and Maggie, who's phenomenal, was running Prestige Labs after I kind of she took over after me. And then Allen was the next big project that I worked on. And for those that are haven't heard of it, we built a machine learning based lead gen package for the service industry, where instead of paying a marketing agency like a retainer plus ad spend, which is very common, kind of a common structure, we just said, hey, don't pay us anything until somebody shows up in your facility. And we started with gyms because that was the need that we had and where most of our experience was. Then COVID happened. And in about 3 or 4 days, we retrained our models and got the team from getting somebody to walk through the doors of a physical fitness facility, showing up to a Zoom consultation for online training. And it took only about another day or two after that to realize that we just got an opt-in off of Facebook to show up to a Zoom consultation.
Yeah.
We can do this pretty much for anyone.
Yeah.
And so imagine, if you will, so let's just say I believe the number, don't correct me if I'm wrong, for roofers is something like the average roof project is about $17,000 or $18,000. If I said, hey, don't pay me anything, but every time you get a chance to pitch a $20,000 project, just pay me $500.
Yeah.
And you're going to close 1 out of 2 or 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
So your cost of acquisition is $1,500 against a $20,000 job. Yeah. And everywhere in there's usually one that's larger. You would take that deal all day. It's a risk-free trade for you. So that business went from 0 to $1.7 million a month in recurring revenue in 4.5 months.
Wow. Yeah, that's a massive case study right there.
Yeah.
And so it's something that you guys were you were pretty diligent in building. Your background is like you talked about the story up until 2008 and then getting into the fitness space and all that type of stuff. But I guess like your key piece in the sale of these companies, what did that look like exactly? Like what were some of the inner workings or the prep that you needed to do in order to make sure that the team could actually exit?
Yeah, so I worked really closely with Layla. One of the challenges, which Alex has talked about in principle, is he was the center of all of the universe. And when you sell a business, one of the decisions you have to make before you start the process is, what role do you want to play post-sale? Many times when a business is not prepared properly for the sale, the seller, you in this case, needs to stay with the business for some period of time, because that is the buyer saying, I need to reduce my risk that something goes wrong.
Sure.
Was fairly confident early in the process that Alex was not going to be part of the deal, and therefore there was a period of time where it was, how do we extract him from being in every video, running every call, all of those types of things. So that was kind of the first part of the process. The second was I brought my experience in the capital raising and capital markets and institutional investing community, knowing bankers and folks in the M&A space as we were thinking about kind of that process in general. And so, there was an operating role as well as kind of helping strategically in aligning up the business in the best way possible.
Yeah, that's and I think that piece that you just spoke to about finding those types of people and having those relationships and things like that, it's invaluable, right? Yeah. Having somebody like that in your corner. So it's amazing you're able to serve that up. I personally got to experience this now on 2 separate occasions, interfacing with Layla. And don't get me wrong, Alex is, an unbelievable thinker, an incredible executor. Don't get me started on marketing. He crushes when it comes to that. But I think that the hidden gem is Layla's operational excellency, because I've gotten to experience it now on, one time in person, and second over, a Q&A session. And I want to kind of ask you, Tim, because if you worked with her closely, I'm sure you've taken at least one massive nugget of gold that still applies to your day to day with the consulting and growth business that you're running. So I guess, like, what is that nugget of information that Layla's given you?
I will say, with all credit to her, I have built most of the way that I operate off of things that I learned from her.
Wow.
She is remarkable.
Yeah.
One of the main things that I missed on, and you can file it under the saying that it's my responsibility to build the people build the business. I was 100% indexed to being a high level executor.
Yeah.
When I was working with her, and I saw and I learned skills that I didn't have at that time around how do you articulate, like, Alex and Lila had vision. Alex had, that was where his most, he's famous for having a very empty calendar. That was very much the same experience I had. But she could translate that into the plumbing,
the minutia,
but it was even more than, like, it's the equivalent of looking at a spreadsheet versus what is the story the numbers are telling you. Like, they're very different things. She was remarkable at getting people moving in the right direction, in the same direction, not without being soft. I mean, there's not a piece of that. It's like she knew where they were going, and was unrelenting in setting and maintaining the expectation standard.
Wow.
That was probably the thing that I learned the most, because I was more of a people pleaser going in, and I thought that being accommodating was a good thing. And I think I learned that A players is a common thing that everybody talks about, but it's like ballers ball, winners win, Eagles fly with the Eagles is what I learned. And if you are compromising, you are by definition watering down the impact that you're going to have.
Wow.
And I had a fear that if I set a high standard, I would be left doing everything. And the exact opposite has happened since then.
Wow.
Because you attract your tribe.
Yeah.
And if you if you give up on the standards that you set, those that you actually want are turned off.
Yeah. Not compromising on those things that are.
Yeah.
I mean, the standards that you set for yourself and for those around you in an organization, especially, it directly reflects, like, the success that you're going to have. And so, Tim, these are some incredible lessons that you've kind of brought us. I know we're up on time here, and so I want to be respectful of it, but I don't want to leave people without the ability or opportunity to connect with you. And so for those of you who are listening to this, or those of you who are watching the show, I will link all of Tim's information in the show notes or in the description below. timcalise.com, that is where you can connect with him. Personally, I'm connected with Tim on LinkedIn. I know he's very active on there as well. But Tim, I'll give you the opportunity to do a little outro for yourself. Where can people connect with you?
Yeah, so timcalise.com is the website. I mentioned that I have a framework that I think would be helpful for everyone listening. So if you go to Instagram and DM me Lev, L-E-V, as a thank you for listening to the show, I will send that to you on me. And there's a little video that goes with it, and you can take that, and I think it will help expand your horizons on what is possible within your business. And so check that out. Go to tim.calise on Instagram, DM me Lev, L-E-V, and I will send that over to you. Other than that, I would say my parting words, I guess, would be define where you want to go and find someone who doesn't call you crazy for setting that standard. And then you have a chance of being in the right room.
Right. Huge.
And if you're not there right now, it's not because it doesn't exist. It's because you haven't found it yet. So find a mentor, find someone. I love the saying, you can't read the label from inside the bottle, and live events change lives. So find someone who can lend their confidence in you, that where you want to go can become the reality of tomorrow for you.
Tim, thank you so much for imparting all of this wisdom. And you said you're an empath at the very beginning of this, and I think that that empathy has really lent itself through the length of this conversation. So thank you for giving us your heart, giving us your mind, your intellectual wisdom, and all that stuff. Tim.Calise on Instagram. As a thank you for being on the show, Tim is opening up his inbox and giving you guys this framework. So take advantage of that. Reach out to him. The word is Lev. Just send him that DM. And Tim, we look forward to maybe having you on the show in the near future sometime soon. Okay?
I hope so. It was great. Thank you so much.
God bless you, Tim. Have a great day.
Same to you.
Bye.